What I wanted to talk about here is that you have options in the careers that you choose, and it's really important to recognize that, to think about the particular options that you actually have in this world. Um, we often get in these moments where we start focusing on one solo path, and we get tunnel vision. The tunnel vision is this idea where, for example, you might be driving down the road and you forget about other things that are going around you, and you just simply focus on the one thing in front of you rather than focusing more broadly on other options, other things, the bigger picture. And we tend to do this. I personally think we tend to do this in our careers. We tend to do this in our lives. We tend to focus on the objective, focus on the one thing that you think is the right goal or the right target, rather than looking more broadly at a broader spectrum and this using that broader spectrum to help you to get through things. It's kind of interesting if you think about, if there's this kind of like old um, these old sort of problem hacks or whatever, where people would look at a piece of paper and there would be like a question on there. And the one that I'm thinking about right now is that there's a question about, like, connecting the dots between these particular lines. And you can't do, or these two particular points to make, I think it's a star or a house or something like that. You can't do it unless you draw outside of the lines. And that's where I want you to think about things, is that, if you're focused on the dots and you don't see outside and you don't see sort of other solutions and other alternatives, we tend to sort of lose perspective. And we get kind of angry, I guess, or, we narrow down too much on what we're looking at, and we get sort of frustrated that we're not making any progress and we're not sort of moving in any particular direction. And I want to just point out that you're never stuck in anything that you're choosing, in anything that you're doing. There's always options, there's always alternatives for you to look in different directions. And it's important to look for those different alternatives and different directions. For example, you might sit down one day and think about the different possible industries you can get into, the different possible, ways that you can use the knowledge that you have. There's all sorts of different ways that you could sort of think about things. Maybe it's different, and applying it in a different context, the skills that you've learned. And you simply have to just pursue those particular things. Now, the trick, though, is to not sort of go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and sort of, get tunnel vision sort of temporarily, or, myopically, where you're just focused on something that is very close by, but instead have a systematic perspective, or not a systematic, but a theme with what you're doing, and look for ways that you can leverage what you'd want to do. So if there's a particular spot that you don't feel comfortable in at the moment, don't immediately sort of say, oh, put your hands up and leave, throw your hands up and leave or whatnot. But, move gradually, build the competencies, the skill sets to go in a particular direction that will open, do things. So, it might be just building a curiosity in an area that, so you've identified where you want to go, or outside of what you're currently doing, you identified it, but then sort of pursue a curiosity in the thing that you'd like to do. And it's usually something that you just feel comfortable with doing. There's a lot of ways to sort of identify what you can actually do. And one of them might be doing that sort of systematic analysis. But another thing is just thinking about, what do you like to do? What makes you happy? What on a day-to-day basis makes you happy, or that you repeatedly do for fun? And so, for me, it's actually my outlet. How I feel great is actually just talking to you, telling these stories, on YouTube or wherever, on podcasts. No, second podcast. But, you know, I, I feel comfortable doing that. And I feel okay doing that. Now, am I going to feel great, in 10 years? When that other people are watching this, there's lots of negative thoughts and feedback and all that stuff from other people. Well, I don't know, maybe I won't want to do it then, but right now it's kind of my outlet and I feel okay doing it. So that's where I want you to sort of think about at this moment is, you're not stuck. You're not in a position of a lack of power, and I think that's where you want to really think about is, whenever you get in that feeling of being stuck or that tunnel vision, it means that you kind of feel that you're powerless. And I don't want you to be there. Where I want you to go is to systematically think through where you want to go in the future. And then after that, start perusing that particular thing that you're kind of curious about. And if you don't know what you want to do, well, just kind of start perusing a bunch of things. Try to explore it. There's all sorts of really fun things that you can actually do in this world, and try them. And most of them are going to be a total flop. However, if you take people along on the journey and you take people along in this sort of where you're going, it could turn into something. It could be something. It might not necessarily. I know for a fact it's not going to happen overnight. None of this stuff ever happens overnight, and I think that's where a lot of frustration comes from. Is that you sort of forget, and how long things take, right? If you just simply look at, the most famous people or the best athletes or whatever, right? The general rule, is that it takes 10,000 hours, to get to where you want to go to become an expert in an area. And that is just, that's just kind of what it is. It just takes a lot of time. So if you think about that, if you did something to get that 10,000 hours, that's going to take you an awful lot of time. And so be easy on yourself when you're doing it and just know it's going to take an awful lot of time, and enjoy the process and enjoy what you're trying to do as you're sort of navigating and going in different directions. And some days are going to be great, and a lot of days are not going to be so great. But you want to sort of come back to the thing where you feel okay and comfortable and, at home, and really use that as your starting point. Where I want to end with this is to tell you that just do things that make you feel good, inside, and where you kind of want to go inside, and to let you know that you're not stuck where you currently are, and you simply have to just start pursuing where you want to go. But it's going to take an awful lot of time and an awful lot of work to get there. But that is okay. It's part of the enjoyable process of actually getting to it. And if you use that thing of where you want to go. So the thing that you're doing right now, you don't quite enjoy. It's not your thing. It's kind of eating you up. Um, that's okay, right? We all need to do things that are not great, right? Like somebody's going to pick up the trash outside. But if you can make it into a game, make it into something that's enjoyable, do things that make you feel comfortable, having an outlet, um, and you bring people along on the journey, um, good things will happen. Whether it turns into something that's this big, successful, whatever. That's besides the point. What's more important is you're sort of doing something that's on your terms that you enjoy, and that makes you feel whole or complete. And in 10 years, it might change. Then you just do something else, and that is okay too. And that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast, and we'll see you on the next one. I appreciate you listening. You're an awesome audience. Right now, I have a whole audience of one. That's me. All right. Take care, folks.